It leads with its looks. A unique confluence of water, trees, sky, and prairie. Madison's natural beauty has always set it apart, attracted people to it. Yesterday's founding fathers have been succeeded by today's movers and shakers, all making a difference, all giving back to the city they love, all placing service above self, and nearly all proud members of an organization that got its start in Madison a century ago. One of the nation's earliest and among the world's largest service clubs, the Rotary Club of Madison.
This history is not just about the Rotary Club of Madison. It's really about Rotary movement. It's about the organization, about the individuals who have joined that organization, what their purpose was, and their purpose was really to join together to accomplish something great for their community.
At the beginning of the 20th century, Madison leaders were frustrated because there was so much to do. They wanted a bigger city, they wanted a cleaner city, they wanted a city that had better city government, and they wanted a city that would optimize the beauty and the natural potential of the unique Isthmus site. But they also realized that the only way they were going to be able to achieve these goals and a long list of others was to create effective and powerful human organizations. Rotary was one of those organizations that stepped forward and brought to Madison something the city had not seen before. It was a new value, service above self. And with that value came a civic consciousness, a belief in the public good above private good and what a particular individual wanted. These were the things that Rotary introduced into Madison in the early 20th century, and what a difference they made. By 1920, Madison had a familiar look and feel. The completed Capitol stood atop that beautiful glacial pedestal. Taxis circulated around the square. Tall buildings were already punctuating the Madison skyline. Women were voting, and people were relaxing in beautiful parks, including Vilas Park, Brittingham Park. Rotarians worked to ensure the best that Madison could offer.
Rotary has been so important in this community for so many decades. Our forefathers did a really good job laying this city out. You have two lakes, and you have the Capitol on one drumlin and Bascom Hill on the top of another drumlin connected with a retail street. I mean, if we screwed this up, I mean, shame on us. So, and I think that tradition came from our forefathers, who were Rotarians.
The impact of Rotarians on Madison starts with our very founding. Our founding chairman and founding president, John McKenna, built Westmoreland, the Shorewood Hills, Sunset Village. In fact, when it comes to actually building Madison, no name has loomed larger in Madison's history than that of John H. Findorf, another charter member, and his descendants. No single thing about Madison better represents the impact of downtown Rotarians than the University of Wisconsin Arboretum. Joe Jackson, who was an early president of Madison Rotary, brought Michael Olbrich in to make a presentation. It was a Rotary meeting with Aldo Leopold in attendance and Joe Jackson presiding that really excited the community, and the UW Arboretum wouldn't have happened without Rotary and especially Joe Jackson. If you're designing something, if you're building something, if you're putting a social program together, if you're funding something, if you're doing anything in the public spirit and in the public sphere, it will require you to involve downtown Rotarians.
This club has been unusual in the sense that it has embraced the university, and it has embraced the members of the university, the professors and the staff. Almost from the beginning, we've had university personnel, people, in the club. It's not just been strictly a businessmen's club.
I definitely consider Rotary to be one of the university's great friends and great assets.
So the university has used the podium of the Rotary Club as a means by which the academic world can speak to the non-academic world, to the business world, the professional world, and to the greater public as well. And I think it has had an important effect.
I always thought of it as one of our best communication mechanisms, to be able to go to Rotary and address issues that were strategically important to the university. They help increase the level of understanding of the entire community of what the university's up to. And also, it works the other way around. It helps the university do a better job of understanding what the community expects and needs.
We've had some difficult times. You've heard of the town gown divide. Well, in Madison, especially in the 1960s, that town gown divide was violent.
Madison during the 60s, I could do it in a lot of different one words that say different things. Madison was challenging, different, exciting. Is torn apart one word. Certainly Madison was on the cutting edge of political discussion coming out of the civil rights movement and moving into the whole question about Vietnam, peace, and what our nation's foreign policy was, and how that then impacted a local community like Madison.
The Dow Commerce Police Riot of October 17, 18, 1967 was the fulcrum on which a lot of Madison history turned. And what was the summer of love up through that summer and fall turned into what became the Days of Rage.
So there was a hostility, a violent hostility, and I mean literally violent. Destroyed, broken windows, destroyed shops, eventually a death.
I was head of lending for First Wisconsin, and we had the branch down at University Avenue. And I had to go down there and replace the glass every other day from other riots and everything.
The Rotary Club of Madison encouraged dialogue among the sharply divided factions, both in the university and in the city.
First time I spoke to Rotary was not when I was mayor, but it was when I was a student and a member of the city council.
The city had its own divisions, the university had its own divisions, and our club was able to assist people that had a message in sharing that message.
One of the things that was of deep concern to me, particularly around 1968, was the enormous gulf of understanding where the university community was so committed and so active in anti-war activities, deeply rooted in discussions about Vietnam, public policy in the U.S., about how we treated women, how we treated people of color, and at the same time, there was sort of like this attitude in the larger Madison community. Why are you demonstrating? What's so important about it? Rotary brought in speakers to address the subject and to make those connections.
We weathered that unrest, and we took that energy, We took one of the biggest troublemakers in Paul Soglin and made him one of the best mayors we've ever had. So, you never know what comes out of chaos. Sometimes good.
The original constitution of the Rotary Club of Madison, Article 3, Section 1, provided that only white males were eligible for membership. 3 years later, that was revised, eliminating the term white, so all males were permitted to be members of Rotary. That's 1916. The first black member of the Rotary Club of Madison was not admitted until 1969, when Nelson Cummings became a member. That's 53 years, no black members.
Well, the importance of Madison Rotary, downtown Rotary, was a lot of the people who were decision makers in the community also belonged to the downtown Rotary. The superintendent of schools belonged to downtown Rotary. The chief of police belonged to the downtown Rotary. When I came to Madison, there were no black police officers. And so that was a goal to try and see if we could integrate the police department. No black firemen. As a director of the Urban League, it was important to know the people who were attempting to make changes in Madison. I had my own agenda as to why I wanted to be there, you see. And so therefore, if we could talk, if we could meet, if we could act like Rotarians, well and good. Everybody that was in Rotary didn't think I was the best thing since sliced bread, but I wasn't trying to be sliced bread.
When I first joined Rotary, I knew they weren't that many African Americans in the organization. I arrived in Madison 1976, and I was at the peak of my career at the time. I was working on boards and things with people. These are the kinds of people I was used to working with. Having said that, I certainly felt that there should have been more of a representation of African Americans in Rotary, and I set about trying to make that happen. When I was elected president of Downtown Rotary, I felt honored. Whether it was a big deal or not, I didn't know. I would rather let other people beat the drum to say whether they thought the fact that I did it was a big deal than for me to say that.
It wasn't a big deal for me from the point of view that becoming a member of the Rotary Club was like another member. You see, now it might have been a big deal for some people, just like when we took women into Rotary, it was a big deal for people who were not interested in women becoming members of Rotary. And so that's the way it was. So there were people who felt I had a right to be there. There might have been people who said I didn't have a right to be there, but the thing about it was I wasn't there to please them anyway. So that's it.
A lot is expected of Madison in terms of do we live up to our image as being a liberal place? And yes, a lot of it's there, but there's also an undercurrent of things going on which gets to the root of things, not necessarily that easy to change.
The last 25 years has really been a social revolution. It happened in our lifetime. Many of us don't even realize it. I'm sure our younger members don't realize it. And it was not until 1987 that women were permitted to become members of Rotary.
In 1987, when I joined, I had been a judge for 9 years, and I was the chief judge of the district. And I was not eligible for Rotary.
It used to be an old boys club. And we used to have, our wives were referred to as Rotary Anns. I was going to say Raggedy Anns, no, Rotary Anns.
I would not describe myself as a Rotary Ann, although my husband, Jeffrey, was in the Rotary Club for 10 years before I joined.
There was resistance to women becoming members of Rotary, like there were resistance to women becoming involved on every level of of involvement in community life or in politics.
I began a letter exchange with the Rotary president at that time, questioning whether it was purely a service organization or whether it was also a networking organization. And that networking appeared to be extremely important to the membership. And it was equally important to women who were coming into the same professions that men were in, that they be included within that networking opportunity and the service opportunity.
Clubs like ours that were interested in admitting women were threatened with expulsion from Rotary International if we went ahead with that plan. So there was a good deal of tension between the local Rotary clubs and Rotary International on that subject.
Once the United States Supreme Court gave a ruling that Rotary was in fact a public accommodation and that there could be no discrimination on the basis of sex, they formed a committee which was chaired by Jeffrey Bartell, my wonderful husband, who concluded that Rotary Madison could no longer exclude women. And at that opinion, the board of directors voted, I believe, immediately, if not unanimously, and to admit women.
They took the vote, and it was passed, and women became members of the Downtown Club of Rotary.
And that was the occasion where I was invited, along with the executive director of Rotary, to join, 2 women at the same time. We were welcomed with open arms, great enthusiasm. It was past time.
So, 87's a little late. They should have done it earlier. And the Downtown Madison Club would have done it much earlier. It was being a part of the national group that maybe had them lagging a little bit in the community. But I will say, when they were able to make the change, they made it instantly.
If we hadn't opened up Rotary to women, we would have been excluding a number of the significant players in the Madison scene.
Women haven't just been members of Downtown Rotary, they've been active leaders, and it didn't take long. Carol Toussaint was the first female president of our club back in 1992-93.
I'd been very active with women's groups, so that was easy to accomplish things. But to get things done, you need a broader base, and Rotary offered that.
As one woman Rotarian said, now Downtown Rotary has 50% more brain power, 50% more talent.
Rotary would have withered on the vine if it had not responded to the changes of society that were happening around it.
It would have withered on the vine. It has to reflect society, and as society exists. And it does now.
By the time I joined Rotary, women had been involved for nearly 2 decades. And what a wonderful gift to me to come in and really feel accepted.
The diversity of the organization is something very special. It's got a group that we know includes professors and lawyers. It's also got engineers, shop owners, educators, and they come from a variety of backgrounds, geographies, races, ethnic backgrounds. That brings forward a really dynamic discussion.
Rotary is alive. It's constantly changing. It's evolving. I wouldn't be in Rotary today if it stayed the same as it was when I went in 1969.
What I appreciate is that even though it's been recent, you do see the impact of women and people of color quickly in the organization. Sometimes recent changes, you still don't see the changes, but at least in this particular case, we are seeing it.
I think the community changed Rotary, and Rotary changes the community.
We have absorbed people into the club, where people have demanded to become members of the club, who never were there before. And they joined for a reason, and that is to help change the world, and the club too. And they succeeded. And for that, we have to thank them. Rotarians have played a tremendously important role in Madison, in the development of Madison.
And you get those kind of people into one space, and interfacing with each other, and great things can happen. I mean, really great things can happen.
You can imagine Madison without the impact of downtown Rotarians, but it's a different Madison. It's a Madison unlike anything we've experienced, and I think it would be a lesser Madison.
It would be hard to identify all of the contributions by all of the Rotarians to Madison, but certainly during the last 100 years, the community has benefited from the participation of Rotarians in almost everything.
At least I am consistently amazed by the quality and the depth of that commitment.
Well, I think it's a model for civic involvement. I think it's the gold standard. Always has been, and hopefully always will be.
If you look at some of the members of this club who are multi-generational, they have joined because they're not just interested in their own career, in their own business, or in their own profession. They're interested because they want to continue the work of their family.
Every great city has certain families that help define it. And in Madison, we've got two great families who are Rotarians that have really defined Madison. We've got the Goodman brothers, Irv and Robert, and of course the Frautschi family, going back to Emil. Emil and Walter, I think the only father-son presidents of Rotary. Walter and Lowell were also great benefactors, great social, civic actors. Walter Frautschi was the head of the campaign that raised money to build the Civic Center, and of course his son Jerry has contributed that with a mind-boggling philanthropy for the Overture Center for the Arts, and now a new generation of Frautschis are continuing their record of service and philanthropy.
My family has had a pretty deep commitment to Madison. We've had businesses that were fairly public. And we've always thought that part of what we should be doing in the business is to share with the community.
The Goodman brothers would be a great example of how, through the Rotary Club of Madison, we're able to institute community changes for the better. Some really meaningful programs that have affected so many people in our community.
People like Bob and Irv Goodman, who as members were leading, in a quiet way, leading the community to do things they might not have done without their leadership and their contribution of funds.
They had more resources than they needed, and they were very generous, not only to Rotary, but to a whole bunch of causes within the city.
Over $10 million for such things as the Goodman Community Center, the Goodman Pool, lots of Jewish activities.
One of my favorites, which costs $50,000 and has no moving parks, and that's the bicycle path around Lake Monona.
The Goodman Madison School Community Recreation Program, in conjunction with the Rotary Foundation, was funded by a generous grant from the Goodmans that totaled $1 million. It is designed to provide nutritional information and exercise for people 50 and over in the Madison area.
They knew what they were doing. They lived well into their 90s, but the point was there's also the question of health, not just for Rotarians, but for the larger community. And that's certainly a contribution of downtown Rotary.
You can't imagine modern Madison without the Frautschi and the Goodman families and their record of service and philanthropy, and they really represent what Rotary has meant to the history and development of Madison.
Well, Rotary shapes Madison by informing Madison.
It's probably the most efficient way to get the word out about pretty much any issue.
They've been on the cutting edge in terms of bringing in speakers on local social issues, on science, on culture.
We've had a cross-section of people, you know, football coaches, basketball coaches, governors, senators, the mayor, all kinds of people.
You look forward to Jamie Thompson talking about stem cells or the governor talking about the state of the state.
George McGovern came to speak at our club. He was as amazing as I always imagined him to be.
Back in the mid-'60s, Governor George Wallace was in Madison and spoke to the club in his opposition to the fair employment laws that were being considered at that time by Congress.
Mike Petrovich was an outstanding professor of history, and he gave several memorable talks. Manfred Swarzinski was another, as far as that goes. But we've had a number of very entertaining speakers or topical speakers.
If I mention his name, it's going to go to his head. But I've enjoyed Stuart Levitan's History of the City, those presentations.
Author David Marinis has become a real favorite.
My son spoke to the downtown Rotary about being a law partner with Barack Obama. He was the best speaker the Rotary has had since I've been in Rotary. Now you can take that to the bank.
The philanthropy in this club is extraordinary. The amount of money that has been given to Rotary by Rotarians, the foundation now is $8.5 million. The amount of grants every year is $500,000 a year from a group of 500 people. It's really extraordinary. It's hard to believe.
In 1932, the Madison Rotary Foundation, when it got its start, that was in the depths of the Great Depression. So just imagine these Rotarians who couldn't pay their dues were setting up this foundation because they saw a need in our community, and these philanthropists wanted to help individuals in need. We now have an $8.5 million foundation, and just imagine that. Over the years, we've been able to create the third largest Rotary Foundation in the world.
And it's used for a lot of good things. Scholarships, it's used for grants to the community, it's used for some international grants and more. That combined with an annual fund drive enables this club to distribute about $500,000 a year, mostly in this community.
I think there is a huge amount of respect and appreciation for all of Rotary's contributions to the nonprofit community.
The Rotary and United Way's history really goes back to our very beginning, and our missions are intertwined and our people are intertwined. The folks that started United Way were in Rotary at the very beginning. Judge Rosenberry, who was our first chair, the Starks, the Frauchis, the Bowleses, all were those folks around the table who began the United Way of Dane County. We're so grateful for 100 years of that commitment to our community, and we know we're going to look forward to that for many years to come.
Madison has lots and lots and lots of nonprofits, many of whom apply to us annually for grants, and we're able to support the hard work that they're doing out there. All those things make me proud to be a Rotarian.
Of all the activities that Rotary is involved in, the one for me that is the most fun to be part of is the scholarships.
There are 21 scholars selected each year out of 35 candidates given to us by 8 area schools. And it is a 4-year scholarship. So if you add 4 years, freshmen through seniors in school, that gives us an approximation of 80 scholars that we are supporting currently and every year.
It's a real joy to me to help increasing the support of that program every year, seeing the success that the kids are having at the college level, and knowing inside that you helped someone succeed.
This gives them the opportunities to do things that they never would have had the chance to do.
About a decade ago, we added a mentorship component, which gives social, emotional, networking support to the students as well as the financial support from the scholarship. And that, together with the financial aid, is giving us a graduation rate in the 86 to 95% range, which is phenomenal.
It's so smart, in my opinion, that Downtown Rotary matches a mentor with the scholar, because we're then committed, and we're not just there for a year, we're there for 4 years and beyond.
You have one Rotary mentor, but you really have 500 Rotary mentors who can assist you with your career.
My wife was a Harry French scholarship winner at the time, before we knew each other. With that scholarship, she was able to afford to go to college and get her nursing degree from Marquette, and without that scholarship, there's no way she was going to be able to do that. And so that is special.
Then when they come back and they tell their stories about what they've done with their lives and how Rotary helped them, with their college. That's the best.
This program has given me the motivation to succeed in everything I'm going to do with my future.
The Rotary Scholar Mentor Program is fantastic.
The Ethics Symposium, I think, is really remarkable.
The first year was 2000, and we had 100 students from the Madison schools, and now this is our 13th year, and now we have over 200 students who attend.
We're working primarily with the juniors in high school and having them, make them recognize that they're dealing with ethics every day.
They experience different situations where they have to make ethical decisions. And the idea is so that they learn in every part of their life, their ethical decisions and how do you go about making them.
It's a framework, and we give them the tools to think through these ethical dilemmas in a different way. They can see that there's not just one answer to what they might be dealing with.
And you can see the light bulbs coming on in their mind. It's worthwhile.
As part of our annual grants program, we have 10% of our funding goes to international grants, and that's about 4 or 5 projects per year. In 2004, the Madison Rotary Foundation decided that we should have an international signature project, and that's how we became involved in Sakati. And Sakati is an educational facility near Cusco, Peru.
And the villagers come to this place to learn sustainable living skills, things like sewing and weaving and gardening and farming skills.
We've got an extremely poor community of a couple thousand people, and they're being educated, particularly the women, interestingly enough, being educated and being taught vocational skills to be able to better their lives and also the lives of their offspring.
And by traveling to these places and helping people in other places, and if you're not even traveling, or if you're giving, you do see that we are more the same than we are different.
It's a very exciting project.
AIDS pandemic, as it swept across Africa, has just orphaned millions of children. There are over 1 million in this little country of Malawi.
In Malawi, we have a project that is for orphans whose parents have died of AIDS.
It's not an orphanage, but it's support for orphans. What happens is these kids, when they're orphaned, are taken in by another family in the village where they live.
The funding we provide helps these orphans to be able to be educated, and they are able to stay in their communities and not have to be institutionalized because of it.
And to be able to reach out to a specific community, a specific location, and do a specific job for those kids feels really good. That's through the foundation.
Another project our Madison Rotary Foundation funds, and we've funded it for about 15 years, is the Combat Blindness Foundation, which is headed up by Dr. Suresh Chandra.
The mission of the organization is to help eliminate avoidable blindness in the world. If you do nothing but cataract surgery, you have cured half of the blindness in the world. Cataract is so easy to cure, and it's 20-minute surgery and costs about $20, and next day patient can see. We are now in 7 countries in the world. We have done about 170,000 free cataract surgeries and screened over 1 million people. Rotary has been a very good supporter for my programs, and I think it's wonderful.
The Rotary Youth Exchange Program is one of our long-standing programs, and it sends students from here abroad for 1 year during their high school years, and we receive students here for a year.
Rotary Youth Exchange, in my judgment, is a very real path to world peace. If we don't all meet and understand each other in each other's cultures and countries, we are really missing the boat, and Rotary Youth Exchange does that.
The value is enormous, enormous. Learning about another culture, another language, learning the customs of a family or of a people abroad is just invaluable.
From the time that my oldest child was 3 until the youngest one was out of the house, we had youth exchange students almost all the time.
We sent several of our kids to Spain, one to Colombia, and we received students from various places also, from South America, from Brazil, and from Europe.
My 3 children have together participated in 5 exchanges, and we have hosted about 15 exchange students.
They became part of our family. They learned to speak English with us. They learned to wear a coat when there's snow on the ground. They learned a lot of very important things.
So we like to say we're a force for world peace, but sending people abroad and bringing people to a loving community is a force for peace. That's not just lip service.
In the early 1980s, Rotary International leaders wanted to have an identifiable project for Rotary. And so in 1985, the Polio Plus campaign was launched.
The goal was to eradicate the disease of polio from the face of the earth.
Past president, Dr. Peter Eichmann, who had been a victim of polio, he led by example, gave a large contribution and encouraged all of our members, and indeed members of Rotary clubs around our district, to make generous contributions to the eradication of polio.
He raised $140,000 in a 3-year campaign, and we later had another campaign by Dr. Ross Levine, and that raised another $117,000 towards the effort.
My wife and I participated to the point that we went over to India in 1999 and participated in the polio vaccines, giving drops of the polio vaccine to these young children. One day in India, they vaccinated 130 million children.
There were about 200,000 polio cases a year when we started. There were 126 polio cases reported last year. It's more than 99.9% eradicated, but it's still endemic in 3 countries, in Nigeria, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. And we're still after it.
Think about it. The whole disease will be gone, like smallpox. Gone. That'd be cool.
When you stop to think about it, Rotary is a pretty special organization. You've got 1.2 million men and women in 200 countries, in more than 34,000 Rotary clubs, and they all come together in spite of politics, in spite of race, in spite of religion. And why do they do this? I think the answer is clear. They do it because they share a value, and that value is service above self. And that's why Rotary has accomplished so much.
The mission of Rotary Downtown, is to serve others.
They never waver from their mission, and that's what their mission is, to serve, to make things better. And that is why I cherish Rotary. I do cherish it. I think it should be cherished.
It's not just words. It's not just a motto. Everyone that I've met believes this in their heart and soul. They want to give back.
Rotary is about community.
Rotary is leadership and ideas.
Rotary is giving back.
When I think about Rotary, I actually think Rotary is fellowship. And from that fellowship, all things spring.
It is a way that I pay back, and it is a way that I get so richly rewarded.
Rotary never fails to make me proud to be a member.
Our Rotary Club sets a gold standard for all civic clubs.
Rotary is an amazing community asset.
Rotary is making a difference.
Is important to me.
It was a good choice.
Rotary makes things better.
You see, really, it's an amazing thing. You almost come to love the Rotary Club.
Well, Rotary to me is part of my heritage. It is who I am and who I'm proud to be. You know, when I'm out there, I like people to know that I'm a downtown Rotarian.
Music is fun.
I love music in Rotary.
I'm actually a fan.
And this is from somebody who doesn't sing.
Music in Rotary cracks me up every week. It kind of adds a joy, a bit of celebration to the meeting to begin with.
The music in Rotary is such a part of it. I can't imagine it not being there.
Music in Rotary is a tradition. Traditions in Rotary are tough to change.
It's a wonderful tradition, and there's some traditions we should honor.
Anything that puts you in a good mood is a good tradition.
Whether or not you think it's corny or a waste of time or you love it, it serves really practical purposes.
It is an equalizer, and I love it for that.
When I first arrived, we sang a lot of songs from the 30s and 40s, and I remember leaning over saying, "Do you know the song? Who is it?"
The month that the music committee made us sing the Beatles is the worst month I can remember for music.
First off, downtown Rotary should stay away from the Beatles. If a song was ever recorded in stereo, it should not be sung at a meeting. It just doesn't work.
To sit on the dais and look out and see Gordon Baldwin singing Eleanor Rigby, I knew I was in the right club.
I like it when they play Phantom, but I can't do any of those. That's way too hard.
I love the patriotic song at the beginning.
God bless America, land that I love.
This land is your land, this land is my land.
From California to the New York Island.
From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me.
Every time I get up there, I want to sing I Gotta Be Me, but Steve Goldberg does it better than anyone, so I'm not going to do it.
Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above.
We've got sunlight on the sand, we've got moonlight on the sea, we got mangoes and bananas you can pick right off a tree.
I have the worst voice in the world, so please don't ask me to sing.
I really have a terrible voice, and I also have a cold, so.
I usually just stay quiet.
Consider yourself at home. Consider yourself part of the family.
No. Truly, I'm the only person whose children fell asleep when she lullabied them defensively.
Do you have a tape with you? Because if you do, I can lip sync.
Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Rotarians, happy birthday to you. That's all you get.
I need to sing in a large group of people because I have a big voice.
From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans, white with foam.
There's one that's R-O-T.
ARY is known from land and sea, from north to south, from east to west. He profits most who serves the best. ROTARY.
That spells Rotary.
Is that hilarious?
I won't sing that. Oh, wait, I just did.
My home is in Madison, Madison, where the girls are the fairest and the boys are the fairest of any old place I've ever been.
I'm not singing. I mean, because Rotary people are really serious about singing, and no.
Well, we'll bring in a stand-in for that, okay?
We've got volleyball and ping pong and a lot of fancy games. What ain't we got? We ain't got dames.
For the times they are a-changin'. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.